Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection, of course, starring in the co-captain's chairs, Mr. Simon Bray and Mr. Steven Reid. Welcome, gentlemen. It's Saturday evening, your time, Saturday afternoon here in the States. Perfect time to settle in with a cold beverage and discuss a little music, right? What do we got there? Steven, what are you drinking today? It looks like a fine Pilsner or something.
No, I have changed things up this week. And I've gone with what is one of my favorites. I'm on cider this week.
Oh, wow.
So this is an Aspel's organic cider. I must admit that I'm not on any commission, but I do tend to buy in bulk from them. So there are different flavors and types that will appear as the weeks go on, because they are always one of my favorites.
And Simon?
Wow. I'm trying to cement my sheer northernness. And given what I plan to say later on about things from the north, I've got a kind of Boddingtons with me today.
Oh, lovely.
Good stuff.
Manchester, but it is very, very out of date.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really out of date. And there's about 3 or 4 more that need demolition. That's a thing of mine, out of date beer. Just shove them out of the way and off they come. But excitingly, I poured it out tonight, and I've got my Trodden Beer Festival glass with me. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. Cool. If you've ever wanted to go to a beer festival on the top of a hill in Pendle, yeah.
Very cool.
Sounds like a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I like that beer. I haven't had one of those in a couple of years.
Pissing down it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely pissing. In August.
All right. Well, I'm going to disappoint once again. I am drinking plain old water in my Deep Purple in Rock container here. Just water, because I gotta get in the car and go somewhere after we're done chatting today. So I was like, well, no beer for me. I know. Anyway, so today we are going to revisit concert experiences and memories once again. As we mentioned last week, we're going to be talking about the years 1997, 1998, and 1999, a decade that I think the three of us can agree was pretty difficult for some of us. You had popular music maybe not being our sort of thing, but we still had plenty of other bands that the masses don't listen to that we were able to see and enjoy. There's, some maybe newer favorites and some old classics, right? So we've each highlighted a show or two or whatever from each of these years, and we'll go round and round from year to year. So we'll have Steven start us off here with 1997.
Well, the very fact that we're doing the late 90s is kind of my fault, because I suggested, we should kind of just vary the decades that we look at and the eras that we look at. And I must admit that Peter and Simon both kind of went, late 90s, a bit of a fallow period, don't know very much. I went, I've got loads. Well, it's funny how the memory can play tricks on you, isn't it? Because in 1997, I went to 2 shows. I only went to 2 shows, and they happened to be 18 days apart. As these things work out, don't they? You get, 2 shows in an entire year, and within a few weeks of each other. So the first show that I went to in 1997, it's one of these ones where the ticket lies, because it says Friday the 9th of May at the Glasgow Barrowland, and it's typo negative. Okay, now it lies because typo negative, along with Entombed and Stuck Mojo, which I've put on tonight because it's the only shirt that I have left from this era, because sacrilege, I know, 20 years down the line or 25 years down the line, I haven't kept all those shirts, because otherwise I'd need to move house now. So this is the only one that survives. You can probably see the marks of where it's been set on a hanger, because I can't remember the last time it's got worn. Quite impressed it still fits, but there you go. And the ticket lies.
They even made concert shirts like that, the button down. I mean, it looks like you're ready to go work in the shop or something. It's like
I would turn it around, but there's a back on the seat. It's nice it is a proper work shirt. I think it's got a cool Stuck Mojo on the back. And the ticket lies because it says it was at the Barrowlands. And even with 3 excellent bands, it was downgraded to the garage. And that tells you a lot about the era, because these bands were reasonably, especially on a 3-band bill, quite big news around the time. And even at that, they couldn't fill a venue that takes between, I think, 1,000 and 2,000 up in Scotland. And it was downgraded to the garage, which is still a great venue. And we've seen typo negative the year before at Donington, at whatever iteration that was called at that stage. I would need to look to see if it was Monsters of Rock or not, and they were good. But seeing that band and the kind of slow, heavy dirge that I really like, I mean, I still like Typo Negative, needed to be seen in a small, dark room. So we actually got probably the best benefit of them being downgraded. They probably didn't think so, but we certainly did. And Entombed were excellent, and Stuck Mojo, since I probably spent quite a lot on the workshop, really made quite a big impression on me. And I went home and bought 2 of their CDs immediately and really didn't like them very much. It's funny how you're going to see a band or...
Can I have my money back, please?
Yeah, I know. I still quite like the shirt, to be fair. But it's funny how you see a band live, and you sometimes go, wow, they're absolutely amazing. And then you bring it home and listen to it and think, is that them? Are we sure? Is that really the same band? But yeah, so wasn't the best investment that I've ever made. But it was a good gig, and it was probably, I think, the last time I saw Typo Negative, which is a bit of a shame in itself. And then 18 days later, at the Edinburgh venue, and this is a really naff ticket that I've got here. Okay.
Aha.
So it was Fish, okay, and what looks like somebody's mum actually typed it out on a typewriter. I mean, these actually genuinely look typed, which is quite bizarre. Doors at 9 p.m, which is late for a Tuesday. That's late for a Tuesday over here in Scotland. We're all in bed by 11:15, unless you're doing in the prog seat, of course.
Exactly.
And this was an outstanding gig. I would go on record as to say that was the best that I'd ever seen Fish. It was just after the Sunset on Empire album had come out, literally days after the album had come out. So I'd kind of devoured the album. Now, I wonder if somebody can help me out in the comments here, because Fish's band has rotated at such a pace over the years that I am not 100% certain on who played guitars on the tour. Now, it was Stephen Wilson that played on the album, and he produced the album, and he does a great job. And I think it was, I'm going to get this wrong, Robin Bolt that finished the tour. I think it was Robin Bolt that finished the tour. I think you'll find him on bootlegs or official bootlegs, like, was it On the Big Bus or something like that? That was a Fish album that came out. I actually went and did some Googling last night to try and find who it was. And what I've come up with is that it was Kevin Moore, the arena guitarist. And the reason I'm desperate to find out is because my memory is whoever played guitar, it's ridiculous now that I can't remember, was simply outstandingly good. The venue, for anyone that remembers it, was a tiny little small venue. One of these ones that's got a pillar right in the middle of the room and also a pillar right on the stage. And Fish kind of used it as a prop. He was hanging off it and singing off it and kind of climbing around it. And it was one of those places, especially on a night like that, where it was absolutely rammed, that the condensation was running down the pillars. It was so hot, and it was just ridiculously
What month is that
breathless
again?
in the room.
What month did you see it?
What month? That was in May.
Okay.
I saw.
He came over here shortly thereafter. I saw him in July.
Yeah, see that now. By the time
I don't remember who was playing guitar.
Right, by the time he played the US, now I can't remember if it was Frank Usher or Robin Bolt. Somebody can tell me down below. But by the time he played in America, the guitarist was different, and that's why I've always struggled to remember who it was.
Could it have been the guy? I forget his name, but he would open some shows too for him. John Wesley.
John Wesley. That's not impossible. John Wesley, because
I think that's who played with him here.
Right, okay. Certainly the official bootlegs that came out from the US tour were Bolt or Usher, because I looked that up last night and I've actually got a couple of them. But the band rotated at such a stage, because Fish lost a lot of money at that stage, and I think he struggled to keep the same band on the road. I mean, the rest of the band, I think it was Mickey Simmons on keyboards, Steve Atsis on bass, Dave Squeaky Stewart on drums, and then I've written down Keith Moore on guitar. And it'll be interesting to see if somebody can better that. But he played an awful lot of the Sunsets album, and he was just on fire that night. You know, there's, especially with somebody like Fish, you get good nights and you get great nights. Well, it was a great night, and the voice was really intact, and he was just absolutely phenomenal. And the support band were a band called Splendid, who were not one of those ironically named that you'd never heard them before. I've never heard of them since. I think I did actually buy a cassette of theirs as well. You went to gigs and you just threw your money at the merch stall, really, back then. And I played it and it was a lot of rubbish too, so I probably don't have that anywhere these days either. So that was the only two that I went to in 97. In my memory, I did loads, but I only did two. So there you go.
You get the olds, that's what happens.
Permanently.
All right, Simon, I know it's going to be fairly quick for both you and I, but what do you got for 97?
Well, memory's a fun thing, isn't it? Given your absolute deconstruction of the minutiae of Fish. When we get to 1999, my memory is shit, as you will find out. But 1997, and I'm going to step out of the SRT paradigm just for a moment. When me and Steven were working out that actually there's not that much crossover between the two of us, the Venn diagram of the UK connections, really quite tiny, isn't it? Yeah, and we were sharing lists and something, and I sent a big list, all of which Steven just went, no. But on that list, yeah, just like hello, on that list, and I said something on the lines of, and for my sins, and I make no apologies. The Monkees. I saw the Monkees in 1997. I love the Monkees. I can't tell you how much I love the Monkees, but let's have a go. A lot, a really great, and they were all there, all four of them. Yeah, just saying. At what was the 9X Arena? Yeah, the Manchester Evening Arena. Is it Manchester Evening News Arena? Or is it the phones for somebody else now?
Oh yeah, it's bound to be something along those sort of lines.
Changes its name roughly every 3 seconds, doesn't it? Actually, I could probably tell you what it is. It's the AO Arena.
AO?
AO.
Well,
Hey-o.
I mean, it's just right for that shit, isn't it? I'd like to think somebody's going to do that at some point at the AO Arena. But anyway, so the Monkees, love them. I thought they were great, but we went with our friends, and they were just like
really?
Yeah, they each had a solo spot, and Mike Nesmith did Rio in a massive surprise. I thought, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen up till this point in my 30 years on the planet. At that point, and there we go.
Really?
And if memory serves me correctly, that's the only time I've ever been to the arena where the stage was at that end. Yeah, I know that means nothing to me. They were playing from right to left, whereas always you play from from left to right at the arena. And I'm 100% confident the stage was at the other end. Don't know why.
Did they not change at halftime? No.
They absolutely didn't. I see your football reference, and I understand it. So anyway, I just love them, and yay, really pleased. Really pleased I went to see them. I got a Monkey sweatshirt, which A, wouldn't fit me now, and B, by the time I'd done with it, didn't have armpits.
The only thing that you actually lose any credibility for is for buying the sweatshirt.
I'm calling it. Do I look like I know the different long sleeved? You know what I mean?
I'll let you off.
You'd have a collar.
I don't find anything vaguely embarrassing about the Monkees. The Monkees were phenomenal. Not only were they a massive part of everybody's childhood up to a certain age, because we watched them every weekend morning, even over here in the UK, but the music is great. The music is absolutely great. And I am actually slightly jealous that you've seen the Monkees, and I have not and will not see the Monkees. So it's maybe outside of our usual realms, but it works for me. Massive Monkees fan. Yeah.
If Jim Bakke is watching, he's jumping up and down with delight because he loves the Monkees. He talks about them all the time. So yeah,
I feel like it should be
Simon's right there
obligatory.
with you.
Yeah, it should be obligatory.
Absolutely.
Also, when we get to 1998, I'm just going to slag off popular music of the time. And it tells me something that in 1997, actually, the Monkees, who were famous in 1967, and I also went to see Lynyrd Skynyrd in 1997, who were famous in 1977. You can see a pattern going on here. No new music, because it was all shit. I'm just saying. I really liked the 20 album, Skinner's 20 album. I really, really liked it. I feel, I'm going to say, I think it's one of the best two that they've made since they reformed. I really, really like it. And when I'd seen them previously, they'd done like new material. So I was quite excited. I thought they're going to play quite a few from 20. This is going to be cool. I'm ready. Right. Put to one side the support act for that evening, because we're doing a support act best and worst, aren't we? Later.
Oh yes, we're certainly are. Yes.
Let's put that gentleman to one side, for he will return at a later time and get pasted into the middle of next week. But anyhow, so stood there, support act gone off. Yeah. And I'm ready to hear those songs from 20. Then suddenly Johnny Van Zant's voice comes over the intercom or whatever you call it, and he says, "Hi, this is Johnny Van Zant. So we've got a great new album out. We hope that you like it. It's called 20. Here's a selection of the songs that we're not going to play tonight."
They actually pre-warned you that they weren't going to play them.
Yeah, practically everything I wanted to hear. Yeah.
So the band themselves actually gave you set spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean, that
was basically for you, because you're probably the only one sitting in the audience who really wanted to hear those songs. Everybody else
really
like, play Freebird, man. Sweet Home Alabama. That's all they want to hear.
Desperately wanted to hear Home Is Where the Heart Is. Really, that piano, really, really wanted to hear. No. And then the ones that they did play were the ones they played Bernice, which is Rossington's mum in it, but it's not very good. It's like the worst track on the album, but they played that, didn't they? But everything I wanted them to play.
So I need to ask, to go off at a slight tangent, if that's one of the best two, what's the other one?
God and Guns.
Right, because I saw them on that tour. I don't know if we've spoken about that at some point, and they played Zero off that too, and I love it. I absolutely
I don't think they played anything when I saw them on that tour either. In fact, in all the times I've seen them over the last decade, I think I saw them play Red, White, and Blue, and maybe another song off of that particular album. And I don't think they played anything else that was new.
Last time they played here, which was just pre-pandemic, with the Quo in support. Oh yeah, they played Skinhead Nation. And they also played Red, White, and Blue. And they played it in Manchester, and they did that dedication to the troops thing, which over here kind of doesn't fly over here, does it? It's not not really the done thing over here. And they dropped it for the rest of the tour. So I've seen them do Skinhead Nation and Red, White, and Blue, but the rest of the country got something from one of the first 6 albums.
Funny enough, they haven't played Red, White, and Blue here in their set in years. I don't know why. That should be a part of every single Skynyrd set here, because it totally.
The set that we saw, and I forget the year, they were great. Don't get me wrong, they were great, but the set was so safe. It was unbelievable. And I mean, hands up, it's the only time I've seen them. So I left happy and slightly disappointed, because I had want some newer stuff in there, because I really like the newer stuff as well. But I wasn't really complaining with the set of classics, because I hadn't heard them before. So
yeah,
so it works for me. Even though it's not quite what if you'd asked me to write down what I wanted, it wasn't quite what I wanted, but I didn't really complain.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that really pleased me immensely, it is the only time in my career as a human being I've ever seen Huey Thompson. That's it. And
yeah. I caught them, I think, once or maybe twice with that lineup, which I thought was terrific. I mean, come on, Gary, Huey, and Ricky, all on the same stage together. Doesn't get much better than that. But I also got to see the Outlaws once with Huey, which was really, really cool, right before he died.
Yeah, that's my 1997.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm sitting here looking at my just one-page spread, full page in my book of ticket stubs, and most of them are duplicates because I think I took my then girlfriend, now wife, to all of these, so I have both of them. I will mention the Fish concert first. Was at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York, July 5th, 1997, at 8:30 p.m. I'm looking at that, I'm like, 8:30? What show started at 8:30? Anyway, the ticket stub lists openers Aria and Schrodinger's Cat. And if my memory serves me correctly, one of those two, and I don't remember which one, I think Aria, did not make that appearance. And they called on New Jersey's own Mastermind to come and fill in for the show, because Mastermind were on this bill and they were terrific.
That's a win. That's a win.
Really good. And this was a really good show, but the whole night was like a lot of fun. So before the show, we decided to go. There was like a local bar right around the corner that also served food and stuff. It was like a little pub just a couple blocks away. So we figured we'd go there, have a few beers, maybe have something to eat, whatever, before the show. And it was my wife, girlfriend at the time, and I think a couple other friends. And they had a buffet at the bar. So we got a couple of beers and we said, all right, let's go get some food. They got a buffet in the back. So we're waiting on this line. It wasn't that long, but whatever. But the line's like not moving. And I'm like, looking at the clock, I'm like, what's the holdup here, right? So I look up ahead, like two people in front of me. There's this big, tall guy who's like, talking up a storm and putting like everything on his plate. He's got his plate stacked up high. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Hurry up, man. We got to go see Fish, right? So I'm like peering around and I'm like, I'm going to walk up to the guy and say, hey, could you hurry up? And he turns around with that Scottish accent. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. Derek Dick is the guy holding up the line. And so I was like, okay, now, hey, you can take as long as you want, Mr. Fish. So we said hello. He's like, oh, you're coming to the show, and then the way he talks and everything like that. And we said, yeah. He goes, oh, you're going to be in for a really good time and whatnot. So the show was great. Mastermind were terrific. I don't remember if it was Schrodinger's Cat or Aria who opened up. I kind of think it might have been Aria, because I know I saw Schrodinger's Cat open up from Marillion at the same place like a year later, maybe 2 years later. I don't know. But they were at the time local, so maybe it was them. I don't know. Who knows? But
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did you shake Fish's hand?
I don't remember. Probably not, because I think he had his hands full with serving utensils. So, to feed that mountain of a plate that he had. But I did see him like a year or so later, maybe 2 years later, in New York City at another bar before a show, and I did shake his hand that night. But I don't know if I did this night.
Yeah. What were they like? What were his hands like?
They weren't quite. It was more like they were big. So it's like,
I was going to say, were they not more like this?
Yeah, they're big hands. Yeah, big hands.
So
in other words, big hands in my little hands. Like, oh, can I shake the hand?
That's it. Yeah, he's one of those people who's got monster hands. You shake his hand like this.
Yeah. But at the time, it's funny because I think I actually talked to him a little bit more the second time, and I didn't have the luxury of all this experience talking to you, Steven, week in and week out for all this time. So he's talking to me, and I'm like, I don't understand a word he's saying. I'm trying real hard, it's like, but whatever. So, but it was a really good show, and he sounded really good on this particular evening. When I saw him on the next time around, he was not as good live, but Mastermind were terrific. And I remember, and funny enough, my now wife, then girlfriend, really enjoyed this show. She's like, wow, Fish is really good. She liked Mastermind. And I was like, really? So who knows? But there's always an opposite side to the story. So I also happened to take her to a couple of other concerts this year at Jones Beach Open Air Theater in Long Island, of all places, which, it's one of those places where it's like about maybe 100 miles from where I live, but it takes you like 4 hours to get there and 4 hours to come home, because Long Island is like a traffic trap in New York State. So I took her to see the Allman Brothers, and this was like literally like a month before. So this is June 21st at the Jones Beach Theater. Took her to see the Allman Brothers band, And because I figured, all right, here we haven't been together that long, right? It's still kind of new, kind of fresh. And I'm like, oh, she knows Melissa, and she likes Blue Sky, and she likes Ramblin' Man, right? The big Allman Brothers hit. So I'm like, cool. She'll love this. She'll love this, right? So we go. They don't play any of those songs, although I think they played Blue Sky. But of course, Blue Sky was like 15 minutes long. And we're sitting there, and she's like, is every one of these songs like 15 minutes long and full of guitar solos? And I'm like, well, that's kind of what they're all about. And she's like, oh, okay. Meanwhile, we hadn't been together that long. It's still kind of fresh and new. So she's probably thinking, all right, he probably really likes these guys. So I'll deal, but I'm really fucking bored, right? So she didn't really enjoy that show at all. She couldn't wait to get out of there, right? Little did I learn my lesson. No, because I took her to see the Allman Brothers again like 5 years later, and that was even worse because at that point we were already together for a number of years, and she's just like, man, how long is this fucking guitar solos? And it was raining out, and she's like, and we had to leave early because someone spilled beer on the back of her on her back, and the rain, and she was miserable. I'm like, all right, you want to go home? Yes, I want to go home. I've never seen the Allman Brothers, but that's a story for another day. So. But they were great. That was Dickie Betts and Warren Haynes, the guitar duo. It's amazing. And unfortunately, I also took her to see Jethro Tull right around the same time, a month later. She didn't like that either. I never learned my lesson, right? I even took her to see Santana like a week after the Fish show. No, 2 days after the Fish show, I took her to see Santana because I figured my wife is Puerto Rican. She's got to like this. She kind of liked it, but we sat like all the way up on the grandstand, and behind us were two very manly looking lesbians who were really drunk, and they got into a fight with another couple there, and a fight broke out behind us, beer flying all over the place. Police came up, and I'm like, can I not take this woman to any concert that is just fun? And no, it doesn't work out that way. So yeah, those are probably my most notable ones. I enjoyed them all. So, whatever. So for me, it was perfectly fine. But I probably spent about a total of like 25 hours on the road getting back and forth to those 3 Jones Beach shows, which I was not happy about. So there you have it. Back to Steven.
So for 1998, I was at many more shows. This is why I thought I was at lots of shows in the late 90s. And it's interesting you telling that story about taking your then girlfriend, now wife, to these shows. And getting a mixed response, shall we say. Well, the first of the shows that I was at in 1998, I didn't quite manage to take my other half to because, well, I think I told her the wrong date for it. So she got the wrong date off work. Oops. And then I announced about 2 days before, are you remembering that we're going to see Genesis? It was like, I can't get time off work for that.
Or was it shit Genesis as well?
Oh yeah, this is the only time I've seen Genesis. The only time. Right, so this is the time that I've seen Genesis. Okay, and yes, this is
that guy nobody remembers on lead vocals, right? Yeah,
Lee Wilson. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. And the reason he was brilliant is because what he can do is he can mimic both Gabriel and Collins. So what you got was a really good set with some less popular stuff in there that I quite like. You know me, Peter, I don't actually mind some of this 80s schmaltz that the prog bands came out with at certain points. So you got things like No Son of Mine, you got things like Congo from the fantastic Calling All Stations album, but you also got the Carpet Crawlers, you got the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, you got Second Home by the Sea, and obviously Home by the Sea, but then you also got Domino, you got There Must Be Another Way from this album, you got Mama, you got Invisible Touch. Admittedly, the middle part of the set was acoustic, thoroughly pointless, and it was in the exhibition centre in Glasgow, and that is just an aircraft hire. It's got no ambience, it's got no atmosphere. I've seen a lot of bands in there. It kills a lot of bands. And doing an acoustic set on a ginormodome stage, admittedly with really cool lasers and backing, wasn't necessarily the best idea. And then, as I said, it was a great set. You've got Supper's Ready in there. You've got Dancing with the Moonlit Night in there. So, of course, what do you close with? You close with I Can't Dance. Got to play the hits.
Eeks.
You know, and I have to say that the room did kill them. It wasn't brilliant. It wasn't awful. It's not as bad as I told my other half that it was. But that was more of a safety measure than anything. You didn't miss anything. You didn't miss it. Oh wow, you didn't miss a thing. No, they you really didn't want to see. And she really loves that era, by the way. But yeah, not my finest moment, and neither was it Genesis' finest moment either, to be fair. So then on into April, and I went to see, and I like this album. Okay. I'm one of those weirdos.
It held up pretty well, I think. Back in the day, I was kind of like, it's pretty damn good, yeah.
I mean, as will become evident as we do other eras, I come from what now, and I don't like this term, and I will not use this term very often. I come from a kind of hair metal background. That's the music I liked. I still like it. I'm not embarrassed by anything that I have in my music collection, and I really genuinely mean that, because I still like nearly all of it now. So that's why the more melodic side really works for me. And they were absolutely fantastic, it has to be said. They really were. They were better than when I'd seen them a few years before. And unlike that tour, where looking back in my book, they got the British spelling of theatre on the ticket, they actually at least deemed to spell it correctly this time. But they were just absolutely on fire. They were really, really good. But what you did get as well was you got a really good mix of eras. So you got like the opening movements on A Change of Season. So they really did mix it up with stuff from the first 3 albums, that EP. You did admittedly get a lot from the latest album as well, which, as I say, I really like. So I didn't have a problem with that in any shape or form. But that was, out of the times that I've seen them, I think that's probably the one that I enjoyed most. They seemed to really click that night, and they seemed to be really on fire. And it was also still at that stage, it would still be, I would think, Derek Sherinian on keyboards. Yep. And that to me is where it's at personally. I really like Sherinian. I like him in Dream Theater. I like him out of Dream Theater. I like him in Black Country Communion. I liked him off stage for Kiss. I like Derek Sherinian. The guy can play. He elevates anything that he's got something to do with, in my humble opinion. So yeah, that was a real highlight. And that, as I say, I look back on that one very fondly indeed. From there, we go to, this is the weird one. Okay, so we go to, I don't know if you can read this scroll.
Ozfest.
The Ozfest. Okay, from 98. Now, it's sitting here. So the reason that I went to the Ozfest is written on the ticket. Okay. I went to the Ozfest to see Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. Okay, that's why I was at the Ozfest. The rest of the bill shows you how confused the 90s was. Okay, because what you've got in the rest of the bill, a band called Cecil, they were a band that I've seen, I think, 4 or 5 times, because they always opened for other bands that I wanted to see. I did not want to see Cecil. They were terrible. Honey Crack, that's an offshoot of the Wild Hearts after they split. They don't belong in any bill really with the Wild Hearts, with Sabbath and Ozzy, so that's a bit weird. 3 Colours Red, that were from that scene. I really liked them. Typo Negative, so it wasn't the last time I saw them. There you go, talking about rubbish. No, there you go, talking about rubbish. Okay, it was a really mixed up bill that you saw. I think I might be talking rubbish here. I'm reading the wrong lineup. I've got the wrong page in my book, people. Sorry. So the bill was, there you go, I've got a lot of the olds today. So the bill was Pitch Shifter, Head P, Entombed, Human Waste Project, Life of Agony, Cold Chamber, Fear Factory, Outside. I've seen Fear Factory outside a lot. Doesn't work. Not for me. Slayer, same again. You need to see these bands inside. These bands need to be seen inside. Soulfly, you see them inside. Pantera, you need to see them inside. Okay. Therapy, they weren't meant to be on that bill. They were a late replacement. They were great. Okay. Foo Fighters, who didn't fit on that bill at all. They don't fit on that bill. They were really good. I'm not a massive fan. They were really good. But the crowd got bored. I've seen Dave Grohl's arse. That's how bored they got, because it was in the Milton Keynes Bowl, and it's called the Milton Keynes Bowl because it's shaped, man-made shaped like a horseshoe. So you can actually sit on this massive bank, and the stage is obviously facing the bank. And it started off that the Foo Fighters got a lot of notice, and people really took, every eye was on them. But slowly but surely you got one of these, not a Mexican wave, one of those waves of rubbish that happens at festivals, where people start to throw all of the detritus up in the air, and it would go round, and it would come back, and it would go round, and it would come back, to the extent that everybody in the main bowl, like me, was facing away from the stage.
Pay attention to that, yeah.
So Dave Grohl, to his credit, decided that the only answer to this was to go wild. He ran about, he shouted, he screamed, he dropped his trousers, anything to get the attention back to where it should be. It never quite happened, to be fair. And then we got the reason we went. Ozzy, who played a 7-song set, all of classics, but he only played a 7-song set because he couldn't sing, which didn't bode well because he was then singing with Black Sabbath. So the only time that I saw Ozzy with Black Sabbath, well, Black Sabbath were great. Admittedly, it was Vinny Appice that was on drums. I don't have a problem with that, but I wanted the classic lineup because that's what it was meant to be. But Bill, I think, was whisked off to hospital not long before the show, a few days before. So Vinny Appice was a late stand-in. He did a fantastic job. The band were amazing. And throwing water on everybody. And it was just awful. And considering that we really had only gone to see him and then Sabbath, with a few bands that we liked in between, to be fair. I mean, there's other bands on that bill that I will talk about because I've seen them. But it was a real letdown. It was a proper, I mean, we stayed over for 3 nights and all this sort of stuff, and it was a real letdown. But
yeah, a lot of those Ozfests were hit and miss. And you're right, a lot of those bands just don't sound great outdoors.
Yeah. And it's the thing for me as well was who was it catering for? Because not that I was that old back then, I was in my mid-20s, but we were there for the heritage acts. We were there for a bit of history, things that we hadn't been able to experience because, well, they'd been and gone really by the time that we got there. Not Ozzy so much, to be fair. He was still a big deal at that stage, although I'd already seen his retirement tour. I'd even seen his retirement sucks tour by that time. So he wasn't so much a heritage act because he was still releasing music. But to go and see Sabbath with them, that was like, we'll never get a chance to do this again. And we didn't, not with Ozzy. So I'm glad I did it because I can say I saw them. But he especially was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. And it kind of ruined the whole thing, has to be said, because that was the point. But some heritage acts were really good at this stage. So I would show the ticket, but it's one of these horrible ones that you can't actually read. So instead, I bought a lot of rubbish back in the day. So we went to see Deep Purple in Glasgow. They were really good on the Abandon tour. They were excellent. And then 2 days after that, so we're in October, and I went to see You Can't Go Wrong with a Bit of Iron Maiden, okay? And then everyone at home's kind of going, that's the Blaze Bayley era, isn't it? Well, yes, it bloody well is, and I liked it. Okay. I don't care what anyone says. The album's great. Not really. Is that his fault? A little bit. It's his fault a little bit. The material's not good enough. The band let him down. They did not give him a chance. And then they went out and with stage sets like this. This is rubbish. By Maiden standards, this is rubbish. Look at it. It's terrible. I mean, I drew that, didn't I? I drew that when I was bored, not looking. Do you know, with my eyes shut, after being turned around and being made dizzy. Look at it. Look at it.
That's not good.
So they played the Glasgow Barrowland. So I'd seen them on Bruce's See You Later, I Can't Be Bothered with This tour, okay, which was, as a story for another day, because he could not be bothered. He was there because Will has to say that he has to finish that tour. He did not want to be there. So we saw them in the exhibition centre, so that's the big air hangar. And then with Blaze, we saw them at the Barrowland. So that's about the size of the room I'm sitting in by comparison. And it was fascinating how quickly it just went to that size. But what it meant was the people that were there gave a shit. Everybody in that venue gave a shit. They all knew the material. They knew the old material. They knew the new material. Yes, Blaze stood still, which is odd because that's not actually what he does. I don't know what happened with him with Maiden, because if you'd ever seen him with Wolfsbane or solo, not so much these days, because like myself, he's an older gentleman these days, but he was mobile and he was quite aggressive on stage. He maybe because the rooms got bigger and he couldn't do it, but if you ever see him in a small room, he stares at people in the front row. I mean, he takes them on and he always wins. Do you know? But he's a really enigmatic presence on stage. And with Maiden, it just didn't click for some reason. But I really liked them. And it's interesting because a band called Dirty Deeds opened for them. And Dirty Deeds, they had a couple of albums. They were really quite good. They were a bit Maiden-like. But one of their main guys was Tony Newton, who went on to Voodoo 6, and he's now part of the Maiden family. He does their sound on stage. So you see these sort of relationships forming as you go round. And then, as I said about, well, some of the lineup that I read out that was wrong, because I'm looking at the wrong page because I'm a clown. Okay, some of the bands that I did see that you should see in a small room: Sepultura. Okay, and then just a few days or month or so later, Fear Factory. Now, these are both in the QMU, the Queen Margaret's Union. Now, Simon, I don't know if it's the same where you are, but how do you get into a student union?
Through the door?
Oh, yes, through the door, but somebody needs to sign you in.
Ah, yeah. Well, certainly used to, yeah.
Well, back in these days, you would buy a ticket for these bands, and somebody, a student, would still need to sign you in. You would stand in a very long queue and you would wait a very long time to get into the venue because the guy at the door taking your ticket would say to you, "Are you a member?" To which you would obviously have to answer, "No." You come from Glasgow. Ah! And you had to, I didn't have to, thankfully, but a lot of people were passing money over to people to go, "You couldn't sign us in, could you, mate?" So people
you would have to pay for a membership in order to get in, even though you have.
Well, no, what you would do is you would hopefully, as somebody went in to have a drink in the union, you would say to them, "You couldn't just sign us in, please." And this guy would say, "Yeah, these two are with me." And that was enough for the guy in the door, as long as they were willing to put their name next to yours as proof that you weren't going to wreck the venue. I mean, wreck the venue, it's Sepultura. Of course you're going to wreck the venue, okay? But that's how ridiculous it was. So some of the students got wise. "Oh, I can sign you in for a £5." And these guys were raking it.
Oh, sure.
Madness. I don't know if it's still the same, because I think I've maybe been once more, but it put me off going. You know that way when you think, that's way too much hassle, standing outside in the cold for 3/4 of an hour to then have to see the band you've already paid for. You've paid for them.
Yeah.
Madness. But anyway, Fear Factory were outstanding. They were brilliant at this stage and they should have ruled the world. Realistically, they blew that themselves for a variety of different reasons, but they were ridiculously good. And this was Derek Green's first tour with Sepultura. So we'd seen Sepultura a few times at festivals, and it never really quite transmitted, because we saw at the lineup, I was busy reading out the wrong lineup there. That was the one where there was tragedy, and I think Max Cavalera didn't end up playing because of family tragedy at the time. So we saw a unique show, but we didn't really see a Sepultura show from a very selfish point of view. What we got was very good considering the circumstances. So to actually see them on their own terms was very interesting, but they were still kind of gelling at that stage. So it was excellent, but interesting, if that makes any sense. But I was glad to see that era. It's quite interesting, something seeing that kind of the change of the guard in that way. And then, well, I'll need to put my glasses on for this next one, okay? Because we went down to, that's really weird. I can't actually see the screen out of my right eye now. Is this?
I see Gene, Paul, Peter, and Ace.
For anyone that's, yes, here we go. Because we saw them on the Psycho Circus 3D tour. These were handed to you as you went into Wembley Arena. Okay, I made the pilgrimage to Wembley Arena to watch Kiss in 3D. Now, subsequently, I did not know this at the time. I don't actually see it, and people will ask, but it's a long story. I don't actually see in 3D, okay? I see in 2 dimensions, but my brain can work it out. I'm clever, okay? I was born with a squint. And therefore, when you get all these little tests, because all of my kids, well, not all, 2 of my 3 have glasses because Dad was born with a squint, had an operation, had it fixed. And only when they were getting their eyes tested to see if they can see, can you see the ball in the squares? And they're going, yes, it's in that one. And I'm going, what are they talking about? I can't see anything. So many years later, I discovered that I can only see in 2D. So to me, it was absolute nonsense. You would get big messages on the screen for the reformed Kiss. I quite like Kiss, if anyone's noticed. Put on your glasses. Glasses on now. And then there would be lots of shots of Peter Criss going and pointing a stick at you and things like that. Do you know? And Gene would with the bass guitar, so that you could go, wow, 3D. I mean, they're just there, guys.
Such a new concept, right? Woo.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a big screen there and 2 big screens there, and we were right at the back because we got tickets from our local record shop, as we discussed the other day. But I could see them for reload just over there. So I knew they were in 3D because they were there. You know, it was a strange idea. 3D at home, yeah, okay. 3D at the cinema, not really. 3D at a concert when the guys are there, no. I mean, most people now go and my phone's not here. They watch a concert through their phone. They actually actively watch it in 2 dimensions.
Very true. Yeah.
So Kiss, who were really there, encouraged us to watch them in 3D, which is an unusual concept because they were really there. I thoroughly enjoyed it because it was the second time that I had seen the original lineup, which back in the day, I got into Kiss when that was never going to be a reality, was never going to be a thing. I was never going to see the makeup. I was never going to see the big stage shows. And I saw all of those things and I had a fantastic time. But my abiding memory of the journey to and from London, other than the fact that, I mean, my youngest was probably not even 1 at the time. So my other half of the days, I was raking all this rubbish out, all the tour programs and all these various things. She said, so when was that then? So I said to her, well, that was, he says, probably not be able to read it after putting that stupid thing on his face. No, I actually can't read that now. There you go. So that was on the 25th of March. Well, I'm in 99 now. I'm just keep talking. 1999. Right. It is. Wow, I'm on fire tonight. And she actually said to me, so did you go down to London when our youngest was 1 and left me alone? I was like, hey, did you not notice?
All these years later, right? Did you actually do that?
She just didn't notice at that stage. Where's he gone? He's probably still in the loo, do you know? Reading a book, hiding at that stage. But there you go. So yeah, that was a Kiss show. But my abiding memory of going down to London was coming home with 20 or 30 CDs, which we obviously bought on the day before we went to the gig. So when the guy, because we had rucksacks and things, we went down on the day of the gig and back on the morning flight afterwards with no sleep. It was worth it, but it was stupid. But there you go. You do these things back then, don't you?
You're young, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy on the door at Wembley Arena said, need to search your bag, guys. And there's clothes and there's juice and there's CDs, and we could barely carry these things. He just looked at us and went,
like, where'd you guys come from, right?
Here to see the band. I was like, yeah, it's London. We've never been here before. Anyway, so I've rambled on that long. I've gone into the wrong year. So there you go. Somebody else can talk. I'll shut up.
All right, Simon. 1998.
I didn't go to any.
0.
That I can prove. I'm confident that I probably was doing, but this is, where not having a scrapbook really comes back to bite me on the eyes, because I'm sure that some of the bands from previous time, and I'm not saying I did see them, but bands of the size of FM Romeo's Daughter, that they ended up playing in places like Burnley Mechanics. And I know that I've seen those. Whether or not it was in this time period, I'm not 100% confident. I know I was seeing bands like that in, really tiny little places. Also, I was around about the time where I actually went to teach trading college, or as we like to call it, becoming destitute. For quite a while. But what I would say is that for me, that practically the whole decade was musically barren. But the end period, you know, when you're talking about 97 was the year of Cool Britannia, wasn't it? You know, Tony Blair and all that stuff, and you think, well, who or what was Cool Britannia? You think, oh, Blur, don't like them. No, Oasis. Oh, Jesus Christ on a bike, Oasis. Oh, Oasis was so popular. They were so mind-numbingly popular that one of their album tracks, She's Electric, was played all the time on Red Rose Rock FM, which never played any fucking rock music ever, but it played She's Electric by Oasis all the time. If I was to hear that song now, and I probably haven't heard it for 25 years, I would probably slit my throat. I never, ever, ever need to hear that shit ever again, ever. And then they released Be Here Now, the biggest pile of wank in the history of mankind. And everybody else at teacher training went, oh, it's the greatest thing since the Beatles. Really? Because it sounds just like the fucking Beatles, doesn't it? Because there's no originality there whatsoever. But yeah, anyhow. So I'm sure I must have been seeing stuff. But place where I've seen the most acts is Manchester Academy by a very, very long way. And they've helpfully got a roll of honour that tells me who was on in 1998. And I'm not going to say them all because that would be incredibly tedious, but Space.
Oh, wow.
Corner Shop. What did they do? Play a medley of their hit for 90 minutes? I mean, seriously. Corner Shop a thing in America, Pete?
No, never heard of it.
Full of Asher. Yeah. Then, weirdly enough, the Deftones. I shit you not, I was walking down Preston today with a friend of mine, and a guy came out and he was wearing a Deftones jacket, leather jacket, really cool leather jacket, stenciled on Deftones, and we both looked at each other and went, "What year is it?" Deftones. I haven't thought about them for a very long while, but they were on the Levellers, Scholler, Amma. I mean, come on, Travis. No, a million times no. The Blue Tones, no, just Super Furry Animals. Shed 7 are actually playing like really large venues now.
Yeah, they all sounded the same.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Cypress Hill. They're going out with Slipknot later this year, aren't they?
We're pretty
25 years ago, you know. Manson. Different Cheshire, that's all I know about. Placebo, Terrorvision, Ash, Gomez. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Whoa.
Just saying.
Now, which one am I taking exception with there?
You up?
Which one do I take exception with there?
I'm sure I've heard you say you're not a huge fan of Terrorvision, so I'm going to say it's Gomez.
Like Terrorvision.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying.
Not
Space were on again. Space played the Academy twice that year.
Maybe in the hope that somebody would go the second time.
Just no. PJ, no. Space Hog. Who? Mike Peters. Not even the proper alarm. Just no. Roachford. I mean, Roachford hadn't been popular for ages. Roachford was popular when I was at university, a good 7 years before that. Just no. Just a dreadful, dreadful time to be alive. I think we can all agree. And I just didn't see any of these people. Any of them. Just Savage Garden. Oh no. God, it's just like the worst thing ever. Idlewild. No. Anyhow, yeah, I didn't go and see any of them. So barring you, just saying.
It is interesting looking at the late 90s and even doing this. And what I've tended to find is that I was either going to see bands like Genesis, Kiss, Deep Purple, Iron Maiden, who were even then a little bit of the kind of heritage acts. Admittedly, they're all releasing new material at this stage, but even for a massive fan of all of those bands, you could argue that all of their glory years have been a long time before. Or I was going to see the kind of up-and-coming heavy stuff in small venues. But as you're saying, bands like FM and Romeo's Daughter and loads of others were playing, but they couldn't even venture over the border into Scotland because there were not venues that would put them on because nobody would go and see them. So there really was a whole kind of, I would go as far as say 10, 15 year period where those bands, all I saw adverts for where they would play in England, because they just never came up here, because I've been to a few gigs over the years where there's been a small enough audience that you can count it. And obviously that just made no sense for anybody. So there you go. Yeah, strange times, very strange times.
Yeah, I would agree. And one of the things I've noticed in looking, I didn't even bring them up in 97, but I saw them in 97, and I saw them in 96, and I saw them in 95, and I saw them 4 times in 1998. I was going to see Dream Theater every chance I could. Literally every chance I mean, everywhere they played. So I saw them with Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer at that same place in Long Island, New York, at Jones Beach Theater. Probably took me 7 hours to get there and back. But that was a really cool triple bill. That was the last one I saw ELP, and that was, a few years before we lost Keith Emerson. And Deep Purple, I remember, were great. That was probably what, Abandon tour, I would assume. 98.
Yep, same tour that I saw them on. Yep.
Yeah, and that was Dream Theater with Derek Sherinian. Very good show, really, really great. I then saw them again because that was August 9th. I saw them again December 30th that year, so a day before New Year's Eve. It was only Dream Theater at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York, so like about a half hour from where I live now. And that was the Say Goodbye to Derek Sherinian show. That was his last day, last performance with the band. So they turned it into a big goodbye party for him. And it was really, they played a bunch of covers, and it was really different. It was kind of like a holiday show too. So it was kind of, and again, this was back then when news of this stuff didn't travel as fast as it does today. So most of us had no idea that all this was going on. So basically we went to the show and they announced that Derek was leaving the band, right? Not his choice, right? Because they basically said, okay, we're moving in a different direction with Jordan Rudess, right? So there's that. Also in 98, no, there is no also. That's it. Apparently, I only saw Dream Theater in 1998. But look at it. Everything else is 99. So yeah, that's it for my exciting 1998. Back to Steven for 99.
Well, did I tell you I went to see Kiss in 99? Anyway, moving on from my... I actually put in quite a lot of effort and made myself quite organised for tonight, and then I've completely made a kerfuffle of it as I've gone.
I think we're keeping up too late here. That's the problem, It's like,
yeah, we started too early. I'm at my peak after midnight, Peter, is the problem. So there was 4 gigs in 99 that I went to. Kiss in London, and then from there I was back in the venue in Edinburgh, which, as I said, I don't think that's a thing now, to see Pitch Shifter. Another of these bands that I think, did I? Yeah, I suppose I did, and they were quite good. But this was at the stage where friends would go, oh, we're going to see Pitch Shifter, do you want to come along? You think, well, I haven't been to a gig for 3 or 4 months, so yeah, okay, I'll come along. And you had a good night, but you had a good night because you were there with your mates as much as you were there to see the band. Nothing wrong with Pitch Shifter, by the way, but would I have gone to see them if there was lots of other things to go and see? Probably not, is the honest answer to that. Then at the Cat House on the 25th of April 1999, I saw Hard Rain. So that really, for all intents and purposes, I went because they were Magnum. But to their credit, because they weren't Magnum at the time, they played a 10-song set because they only had 2 albums, and the second one I don't even think was out. I think it came out the week after or the week after that. I had heard When the Good Times Come, the title track from the second album. It was on a compilation CD with classic rock. So when they announced it from the stage, I went, yes, thinking everyone obviously heard that CD. I think I was the only person that cheered. I think it was people that seen with that.
Oh, that guy.
There you go. And then we got in the encores, they played 3 songs. We got Vigilante and we got Les Mordants Song. So we actually got some Magnum at the end. And unfortunately for Hard Rain, the Magnum songs went down a storm. The Hard Rain songs went down okay. And Magnum were back quite soon afterwards, and it's not a massive surprise that happened. But I'm pleased I've seen them in that iteration, for a better turn of phrase. And then the last one, I would show the ticket, but it's that poorly printed that nothing will come up at all. Maybe it does. Palace at the Lemon Tree in Aberdeen, which is really, it's a pub come nightclub. Obviously Palace are an Aberdeen prog band. It was kind of their comeback. it's a strange little venue where you come in, obviously through the front doors, and as you go in the front door, you pass the bar, and then the stage is on the left. So the stage doesn't cover like a wall; it covers this area over here somewhere, and then there's a dance floor, so that's where the crowd should be. And then there's kind of tables, or there was then. I don't know if it's the same now because it's a long time ago, with chairs around them, and there's people sitting having drinks and things. And then we were kind of up on this little balcony bit with more tables and chairs, and there was a local support band played. Okay, talented people, can't remember their name. One of the very few that I don't have written in the book because I couldn't remember it by the time I got home. That's how memorable they were. So then Palace came on, and myself and my mate that were there, we thought, we better go down, we won't go to the front, but we'll go down on a... Nobody else joined us. It's very strange. There was like all of these people seated behind us, and maybe about 10 or 15 of us standing on the second.
You guys are probably looking around like,
yeah, all very weird. It's one of those gigs where you could do this and touch nobody. Very strange. They were brilliant. They hadn't even really had the proper comeback by that stage. So Beat the Drum, the comeback album, was a bit of an idea. So we got some formative stuff, but basically we got classic material. I think we got all of the Sentinel, and for all that it was a bit of a strange night, they were absolutely astoundingly good. And it's the only time I've seen them, strangely enough. One of those things you think, why? Because they're a Scottish band, they play up here a lot, and I've just never gone again. I will rectify that as and when they play up here again, because they're still really good. But that was an outstanding night, if a little bit odd. And that was my 1999. That was it.
Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty light on this too. So, but Simon, what do you got? Anything?
I'm really light on this one as well. Yeah. However, you're Stephen in particular, you're almost like photographic memory of shit that you've seen and who played what and where you stood and all that stuff. I feel like sometimes I don't have that. Sometimes I do. Maybe it's because I always stand in the same place at at certain venues. But what I did is quite a while ago, I put all the tickets from all the bands I've seen inside the CD of the album of the tour. I didn't make a cool scrapbook like you crazy. Oh, shit. Really?
Woo-hoo.
Didn't do that. Didn't do that.
I even put that in there so you can see how Dream Theater shouldn't be spelled.
Well, it kind of should, because English is the mother tongue. But let's move on. Yeah, and I know. Well, actually, I've got quite a lot of tickets in a mug that I really need to sort out. I'm never going to put it in a thing like you two crazy kids, but shits and giggles. Anyway, I know.
Send them to me. I'll do it for you.
I'm sure you would.
Would
Enjoy it.
hours of fun. That'd be great.
However, I know that in 1999, I went to see on the Grand Rock tour the Helicopters. I know that I went to see them. It's one of two times I have seen the Helicopters. The second time I saw the Helicopters, I vividly remember it. I remember the support acts. I remember the journey there. I remember all the shit to do with the situation. This one, couldn't tell you anything. Couldn't tell you the support act. Couldn't tell you what they played. The only thing I remember is that my mate that I went with just lit up the biggest spliff in the history of mankind just in the middle of the crowd, and just danced like that for the entire time, and then drove us home. Yeah. I went to 3 gigs with him, more of which in later editions, but I couldn't tell you anything that the band did. Couldn't, but I know I was there. It was like, as I said, second time I saw them, I vividly remember it, and will doubtless talk you through it on a later occasion. But that was kind of it.
Okay.
Also, I'm utterly thrilled that the Helicopters are back.
Yes, indeed. Yep. Very cool. Hopefully they have something to get back to when all this shit dies down, whenever that might be.
Maybe I could go and see them and remember.
There you go. Remembering is always key, right?
find it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. There are a few shows that I've been to where
I know for a fact I wouldn't have been drunk. I know that I would not for that particular, but I can't remember anything about it.
well, this
Which
show
is
I'm going to
good.
talk about, I was pretty drunk at. So, yes, yes. So this was February 6, 1999. Again, in Long Island, New York, at Nassau Coliseum, big place. This was the reunion of Black Sabbath, along with Pantera and the Deftones. Unfortunately, I was too busy with all my buddies drinking up a storm at a local bar, so I did not see the Deftones. By the time we got to the place, they were already done. Not that I care, because I'm not really a fan, so it didn't bother me. We got there just as Pantera were coming on, and this was, Pantera had already been kind of like on top of the world for a number of years, and I think this was towards the end of their tenure together, and they were really good. But I think Phil might have been pretty drunk too. And no, he wasn't hanging out at the bar with us, but Phil seemed like he was on something that night, because he was like mouthing off to the audience, and he was just like all over the place, and he was spewing a lot of that white superiority stuff that he was doing for a little bit at that time. But musically, they were great. They were real heavy and whatnot. But let's make no bones about it. We were there to see the mighty original foursome of Black Sabbath, and they were great. The set list was great. Ozzy was okay, I guess, but the band were just really, really tight. And I think that's, they played most of the songs we wanted to hear. So that's kind of what I remember. Can't tell you specifics because I was pretty loaded that night, but I remember going home and we listened to Sabbath the whole way home. And I don't remember who drove, but we were like in the backseat, Sabbath, listening to Sabbath the whole way home as, guys of, what was I, 33? Oh, geez, I should have been acting a little bit more mature at that point in time. But hey, whatever. It happens. It happens. And the only other, there are a couple other things here. I saw the Steve Morse Band in October of that year. I saw Government Mule and the Derek Trucks Band when Derek Trucks was still a teenager. He had just come out with that debut album. So that was at Irving Plaza in New York City. That was literally like about a month after the Sabbath show. But the one I did want to talk about was a festival. It was the first ever Northeast Art Rock Festival, now known as Nearfest, and that was when was this again? June 26th and 27th, Saturday and Sunday, all weekend long, all prog bands, all weekend long. And we saw day one was, and probably most folks have never heard of any of these bands, but Alaska, The Hand Farm, IQ,
oh yes,
Mastermind, Ice Age from Magna Carta Records, Crucible, Phineas Gage, Solaris from Hungary, and headlining the whole thing was Spock's Beard. This was the first ever Nearfest festival, the inaugural one. It was great. I went there with two of my buddies. We literally just drank beer the entire weekend and listened to prog rock. And it was very notable for the fact that the last night, Sunday night, Spock's Beer is the headliner. Everything was very much had to go by, the time that there was allotted. Solaris went on before them, and though that band did not want to get off the stage, and you had literally, I was off on the side of the stage. Neil Morrison, all the guys from Spock's Beard are there waiting to go on stage. Spock's Beard manager is livid. Get these guys off the stage. And the leader of Solaris, who probably didn't speak a lick of English, also playing flute. Their set should have ended. It was time for Spock's Beard to go on. The crowd is cheering. He looks over, he goes, and thank you so much. We'll play another song. And they go launch into another song. And the guys from Spock's Beard are ready to kill someone. And I literally heard the manager from Spock's Beard tell Rob LaDuca and Chad Hutchinson, who were the guys who put on this festival, they said, if you don't get this band off stage now, we're not playing. And I was literally standing right there, and I was like, oh boy, this is getting real. So very, very fun time, really, really cool. But that was it for me for 99. Not a lot of stuff. Now 2000 is a different story whenever we do. Actually, no, 2000 is not a different story. Not a lot in 2000 either. Oh, well. 2001 looks pretty good, but that's a story for another day. So,
do you know, I saw, well, I didn't see, I've never seen Nearfest, but I was aware of Nearfest, obviously from afar, I had no idea that's what it stood for until now.
It's the East Art Rock Festival. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
I don't even
no,
know how I
that.
heard about this. And we just, it was like a 3-hour drive, 2.5, 3-hour drive from here in New York. And, we didn't, my buddies and I didn't know any better. It was just crazy weekend because it was the first year was in a smaller hall on this college campus. I think it held like about 400 seats or something. And it was a really hot summer. And I remember the air conditioning broke down on one of the days and there was like an oven in this theater. And it was just crazy. But, and I remember specifically, like, most of these prog festivals, generally speaking, the people who attend are single men right? And so I remember, like, Mastermind had this very attractive female singer named Lisa Bochelle for this particular date, and very attractive. And I remember, like, they got on the stage and she comes walking out and like 3/4 of the audience was just like, holy cow. And then during like the intermission where all the bands are hanging out at the merch table selling their stuff, like all of a sudden Mastermind was the most popular band of the weekend. And like every single prog fan who was attending was hanging around the Mastermind table wanting to talk to Lisa Bochelle. And I remember one point I was near where she was and she looked over at Bill Behrens, the guitar player from Mastermind, and she's like, there are all these guys hanging around wanting to talk to her and touch her and everything. And she looked over at him like she was scared shitless, like, get me out of this place. It's like, wherever you brought me to. It was hilarious. It's like, have you folks never seen a woman before? It's like, it was crazy.
Yeah, there are certain stereotypes that you think, yeah, don't put me in with that. We're not all really like that.
Yeah, I saw a lot of interesting people at these festivals, and I went to the first 7 years of Nearfest, and it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of really cool people, saw a lot of great bands. But yeah, there are some prog fans who are very they look like they don't get out much. So for them, this was a thing that they did once a year, and they're like, woohoo, a lot of fun. But that's it for me for 99. So there you have it, everybody. Share some of your concert memories, highlights from 1997, 98, 99 in the comments below. And should we give them a little taste of what they're going to experience on next week's show, gentlemen?
Well, I think we can do. I think that anyone that watched the Meatloaf show will know the kind of thing. We're looking to kind of flip between what we're doing today and what we did last week. So next week, what we're going to, I think, agree on is just what a phenomenal live band Sabaton are and how utterly nonsense they are on CD. Isn't that right, Simon?
I tend not to listen to music on CD mostly.
Excuse me.
Whatever you
Vinyl.
want.
Is it vinyl only in your house, or do you stream?
I've got some CDs. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I've
So
got some.
I guess what we're talking about is the recorded works of this band.
yes, recorded works.
Gotcha.
Oh, is it 9 albums now? Excruciating detail. We're going to go into. Oh yeah.
So for all you power metal fans, it's going to be all about Sabaton, the pluses and minuses of Sabaton. Swedish, right? They're from Sweden, right?
Yep, that they are.
Yeah. So yeah.
Pick a side, everybody. Get ready to defend whatever you believe for Sabaton.
That's right. Coming up next week here on UK Connection. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. But of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time.
All the damn time.
For Simon Bray and Steven Reid. See you all next week. Have a good one, everybody. And tune in to Album Homework Assignment tomorrow. We've got Craig Kaminsky going up against Ryan Scow. See you then.